Unmasked, Episode 4, Gaslighting and Denial. I didn't realize I was being gaslit at the time. I just thought I was losing my mind. That's the thing about gaslighting. It doesn't feel like manipulation when you're in it. It feels like confusion. It feels like constantly second-guessing yourself. It feels like trying to hold on to something solid while everything around you keeps shifting. At the start, it was small things, comments that didn't quite sit right, moments where I would say something had happened and he'd tell me it hadn't, or he'd say I'd remembered it wrong. And at first, I didn't question it too much. I just assumed maybe I had misunderstood, maybe I had taken something the wrong way. But then it kept happening. Things I clearly remembered were denied. Conversations I knew we'd had were suddenly never said. Situations where I felt heard were flipped into me being dramatic or overreacting. And slowly, without even realizing it, I stopped trusting my own memory. I would replay conversations in my head over and over again, trying to make sure I hadn't got it wrong, trying to piece together what had actually happened, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. Because when someone repeatedly tells you that your version of events isn't real, you start to question your own reality. And that's where the damage really starts. Because it's not just about what happened in those moments. It's about what it does to your sense of self. When you can't trust your own thoughts, your own memory, your own feelings, you become completely ungrounded. You look to them for the truth, even when they're the one distorting it. There were times where I knew exactly what had happened. I had been shouted at, told things that no one should ever be told, made to feel small, worthless, like I didn't matter. And then later, I'd be told it never happened. Completely denied. Like I'd imagined the entire thing. And I'd sit there, genuinely questioning myself, wondering how we could be in the same situation and come away with completely different versions of reality, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was remembering it wrong, if I was somehow creating something that wasn't there. But deep down, there was always a part of me that knew. And that's what gaslighting does. It doesn't completely erase your reality. It just makes you doubt it enough that you stop standing firmly in it. And alongside that denial, there was always blame. Everything somehow came back to me. If I was upset, it was because I was too sensitive. If I reacted, it was because I had an attitude. If I questioned something, it was because I was insecure. Even when there was clear evidence, clear behavior, clear patterns, it would still be turned around. And over time, I stopped asking why he was doing these things and started asking what I was doing to cause them. That shift is dangerous because it puts you in a position where you are constantly trying to correct yourself instead of seeing the situation clearly. You start monitoring your own behavior, adjusting yourself, shrinking parts of yourself, just to try and avoid conflict. And even when it became obvious, even when the lies were clear, even when the behavior didn't make sense, the denial never stopped. He would deny cheating, deny things he'd said, deny things he'd done, even deny physical things that had happened. And it didn't matter how certain I was, how clear it was, how much I knew the truth. The response was always the same. It didn't happen. You're imagining it. You're wrong. And when you hear that enough, it does something to you. You become quieter, you question more, you hesitate before speaking, before reacting, before even trusting your own instincts, because you've been conditioned to believe that your version of reality isn't valid. And then there's the part people don't always see, the reaction. Because when you're pushed to that point over and over again, when your reality is constantly denied, when your feelings are constantly dismissed, eventually something in you snaps. Not in a dramatic way, but in a release. All the frustration, all the confusion, all the hurt comes out at once. And that reaction becomes the focus. Not what led up to it, not the constant denial, the manipulation, the buildup, just the moment where you finally react. And that's the part that gets used against you. That's the part that gets shown to other people. That's the part that makes you look like the problem. So not only are you living in a reality that's constantly being distorted, you're also being painted as the one who's unstable within it. And that's what makes it so hard to explain. Because from the outside, it doesn't always look like abuse. It looks like miscommunication. It looks like arguments. It looks like someone being too emotional. But on the inside, it's completely different. It's living in a state of constant confusion. It's questioning yourself in ways you never did before. It's feeling like you can't trust your own mind. It's slowly losing your sense of what's real and what isn't. And the hardest part is, You don't realize how much it's affected you until you step away from it, until you're no longer being told you're wrong every day, until you're no longer having your reality challenged constantly, until you have space to think without someone else rewriting your thoughts. And then you start to see it clearly. You start to realize that you weren't confused for no reason. You weren't overreacting, you weren't imagining things. You were responding to something that was consistently being denied, twisted, and turned back on you. And with that clarity comes something else. Anger, not just at them, but at the situation, at the manipulation, at the way you were made to doubt yourself for so long, at the way your reality was taken from you piece by piece. But alongside that anger, there's also something stronger. Understanding. Understanding that what you experienced was real, that your reactions made sense, that your feelings were valid, that you weren't the problem. And that's where the power starts to come back. Because once you see it, once you understand it, once you recognize the pattern for what it is, it loses its control over you. You start trusting yourself again. Your thoughts, your instincts, your memory, you start reconnecting with the part of you that always knew something wasn't right, even when you were being told otherwise. And that's how you begin to rebuild. Not by pretending it didn't happen, not by minimizing it, but by acknowledging it fully, by understanding the impact it had on you, and by slowly giving yourself back the trust that was taken away. Gaslighting doesn't just confuse you in the moment. It stays with you. It affects how you think, how you feel, how you trust. But it doesn't have to define you, because the truth was always there. Even when it was denied, even when it was twisted, even when you were told it wasn't real, it was still there. And so were you. This is Unmasked, and this is where you start to take your reality back.